Hello, everyone. Would want to wish all of you a very happy new year with the hope that 2021 turns out to be a much better year than what 2020 has been. But without dwelling much on the year gone by, I want to tell you about my video today, which is going to be on 10 films which I feel are underrated and haven't been spoken about as much as they should have, perhaps. These are 10 Hindi movies of the new millennium, of this century, which I feel are underrated. Uh, Before I begin, as always, lists are subjective, and hence, what is underrated to me may not be underrated to some of you. So, we just keep it at that it's a subjective thing, and these are very personal opinions. But I do hope that once you've seen the video, you'll be encouraged enough to pick up a few of these films which you may not have seen before and give them a watch, and then figure out for yourself whether they truly are underrated or not. Anyway, I'll begin with the first film, which is a huge favorite of mine, and it's Socha Naa, which is the debut film of Abhay Deol, Dharmendra's nephew. I think it was also intended to be Aisha Takia's debut movie, although I think a movie called Tarzan got released before this one. But I think this was also intended to be her debut film. And it's definitely the debut of the director, Imtiaz Ali, who's a huge favorite. Imtiaz Ali, of course, has gone on to make so many successful, well-known, appreciated movies in his career. But to me personally, Socha Naa is still the best movie he's made. It's a beautiful, sweet love story, and it's really, really a heartwarming and feel-good movie, which I think hasn't got the kind of attention it deserves. I really won't tell you much about the story of the movie. It's for you to see and figure out yourself. But it is a sweet story, and it is also a slightly confused story about a confused young man who's not sure about who he loves. And I must say, Abhay Deol is absolutely fabulous in the movie, as is Aisha Takia. And there is something inherently sweet and lovely about this movie, and I feel it should get more attention than it usually does. Imtiaz Ali has a lot of other films which get spoken about much more than Socha Naa, but I think this is the movie that deserves a second look. So if you haven't watched it as yet, do pick up the DVD and watch it. I'm sure you won't be disappointed. It's a beautiful movie, Socha Naa. The second movie is also another directorial debut. It's the directorial debut of Kiran Rao, and the movie is called Dhobi Ghat. It's a beautiful little film. It's a lovely vignette of the city of Bombay, called Mumbai now, and it has some wonderfully real and lovely characters in the movie, played by Amir Khan, Monica Dongre, and of course the immensely talented Pratik. Uh, it's a beautiful movie, very well scripted, very well directed, and it has some beautiful moments, some lovely scenes, and it's a very heartwarming movie. I think it. I'm not sure whether it did commercially very well or not, but it definitely is a movie which didn't get the kind of attention it should have, and I think it's a hidden gem if there was one. Dhobi Ghat is a movie you must see if you haven't till now. Now, this next movie is a huge personal favorite. It's a movie called Ganchakar, directed by Rajkumar Gupta, starring Imran Hashmi and Vidya Balan. According to me, this is perhaps the most misunderstood and misinterpreted movie of recent years, because most people who saw the movie were left feeling confused. Is it a comedy? Is it a thriller? It's not fully a comedy. It's not fully a thriller. Well, actually, it's so quirky, and it's got this pervading dark humor throughout the movie that it left a lot of the people who've seen the movie, it left them speechless. They really didn't know what to make out of this movie. And unfortunately, even the critics, I thought, missed that bit of the movie, the quirkiness, the dark humor. And they were, I think, quite unkind in their reviews of this movie. I think it's a wonderful movie. To give you a very very basic gist of the movie, it's about this guy who robs a bank along with two other accomplices, and the three of them decide that they're going to lie low and keep the money, and only split the money amongst the three of them and use it once the case is cooled off. What happens is, after a while, when the other two accomplices come back to take the money, to share the money, they find out that this guy, he's got amnesia. And that's when the fun starts, because he doesn't, they don't know whether he's really lost his memory or he's faking it. And then begins a cat and mouse game between the three of them. And it leads to an incredibly twisted and complicated climax with some disastrous results. It's a fantastic movie, but unfortunately, as I said, most people, when they saw it for the first time, they didn't get it. Perhaps, looking back, I think even the promos, I think, were slightly misleading. They sort of didn't give the true essence of the movie. The promos didn't really truly depict what the film was going to be about. So it sort of left the audience a little confused. But I think it's time to give Ganchakar a second chance, because it's a wonderfully quirky and brilliant movie. Directed by Rajkumar Gupta, Ganchakar. The next film I want to talk about is again by a favorite director of mine, Anurag Kashyap, and the movie is Gulal. I must add that I am not a huge fan of Anurag Kashyap now. The kind of movies he's made off late, I'm not a huge fan of that, but then that's a personal choice and a personal opinion. He's undoubtedly a great filmmaker. But for me personally, Anurag Kashyap's best phase has been the earlier parts of his career, when he started with Panch, which I think is still unreleased, Black Friday, Gulal. This, according to me, was his best phase. My personal favorite from all his movies from that phase is Gulal. It's a political thriller with a backdrop of college and university in small town India. And it's brilliantly scripted. It's got some fabulous performances and some very hard hitting dialogues, very raw, a la Anurag Kashyap. And I think Gulal got a lot of critical acclaim when it was released, but I don't know whether it was commercially all that successful or not. Definitely not commercially successful like Kashyap's current films like Gangs of Wasipur and the likes. So Gulal, I don't think, achieved that kind of commercial success, but as a movie, it is, to me, his best movie till date. He has not, in my books, surpassed Gulal. So if you haven't seen it, please get the DVD and watch it. You won't be disappointed. The next movie is by another director who I feel is grossly underrated in Hindi cinema, Bollywood. I don't like the term Bollywood, but that's a personal thing. I think he's a much underrated director of Hindi cinema, Nagesh Kukunur. And this particular movie is underrated amongst all his movies. It's a movie called Mode, which is a sweet, simple love story set in a small, picturesque hillside town in South India, somewhere close to Kurg. And it's, the setting, the ambience, the atmosphere. It's lovely. It's rustic, and it's got a quaint charm about it. And the movie gently treads along this path of a lovely, sweet love story. But as it draws to its conclusion, towards the climax, it suddenly takes a very disturbing turn, and it's quite. I mean, when the movie ended, it left me with more than a tinge of sadness, and because it was completely unexpected. The last few minutes of the movie, it was completely unexpected, and it took me by surprise. It was treading along as a nice and sweet love story, and then it turns out to be something else. But I think that's what eventually appealed to me more, that it stopped being predictable after a while, and it took a few unexpected and very unusual turns. I wouldn't want to spoil it for you. See the movie and decide for yourself whether you think this is underrated or not. According to me, it's one of Nagesh Kukunur's more underrated movies. I actually don't even know if the movie got released or not. I remember seeing it on DVD. I'm not sure whether the movie actually got a full and proper release or not. But the DVD is available, so do see it and make up your mind whether you think this is underrated or not. Mode by Nagesh Kukunur. Now, this next movie is a thriller. It's a movie called Mera Money. It's made by someone called Manish Bhardwaj, and I'm afraid I've never heard of Manish Bhardwaj before, and I don't know what other movies he's made. But if I had to judge him on the basis of this particular movie, I'll say he's a brilliant filmmaker, because this is one superb film noir. It's one of the best film noirs made in Hindi cinema. I remember seeing this movie in the theater along with 6 or 7 other people, and I came out mighty impressed. And so impressed that I actually went and got the DVD when the DVD came out, because I knew this movie would be lost. I knew there wouldn't be too many takers for this movie, and it would eventually get lost. And unfortunately, that's what happened. Hardly anyone remembers this movie now, and no one really speaks about it. But it is a superb film noir with an excellent performance by Ranveer Shori and Neha Dhupia, the two principal characters in the movie. Do see it if you are a fan of thrillers, if you are a fan of the film noir genre. See it, you won't be disappointed. It's a very good movie. Mera Money by Manish Bhardwaj. The next movie is also a thriller, and it's one of the lesser discussed works of Dibakar Banerjee. It's a movie called Shanghai. Dibakar Banerjee, of course, is much celebrated for his films like Khosla Ka Ghosla, LSD. But to me, personally, Shanghai is his best movie. It's a very sophisticated thriller, again, with a political background, a backdrop of politics. But to me, it's the kind of thriller that is rarely made in Hindi cinema. It has the feel of a Hollywood thriller, a good Hollywood thriller. It's taut, it's well scripted, it's got a It's got a very good cast of Abhay Deol, Imran Hashmi, Kalki, Prasenjit in a special role, and they've all acted brilliantly. And it's not the usual kind of thriller one associates with Hindi movies. This is, as I keep saying, it's more like a good Hollywood thriller. Surprisingly, when Dibakar Banerjee gets discussed, he gets discussed for his other films more than Shanghai. I don't know why. I don't know if Shanghai was a commercial success or not, but as a movie, as a film, it is not to be missed. It's brilliant. Go see Shanghai, get a DVD in case you haven't seen it. Now, this next film is again a huge personal favorite. It's it's one of the quirkiest and weirdest plots I've ever heard. It's Blackmail, starring Irfan. And Irfan, of course, is magnificent in the movie. He's superb. But what I absolutely love about Blackmail is its weird and bizarre plot. It's got to be one of the most bizarre plots I've ever come across. Just to give you a small, a very basic gist, it's about this guy who finds out that his wife is being unfaithful to him. Uh, so instead of killing the wife or killing her lover, he does something different. He goes out and blackmails the lover and for money, and the lover asks the wife for the money, and the wife in turn asks him for the money. So it just keeps on getting weirder and more bizarre at every step, and Irfan is absolutely superb in his portrayal of the wronged husband who tries to take revenge on his wife and her lover. It's it's a thriller, so it has its really dark moments, and the climax is quite violent, and it sort of gets really twisted as the movie nears its end. But it's brilliantly twisted. It's superbly weird, and I think it's a not to be missed movie. Blackmail. Just see it for its wonderful plot and Irfan's brilliant acting. Don't miss Blackmail. This next film is a movie by Mudassar Aziz. It's Happy Bhag Jayegi, and it stars Abhay Deol and Diana Penty in the lead roles, and it has Jimmy Shergill in an absolutely fabulous role. It's a smaller role, but it's a fabulous role uh, done by Jimmy Shergill. It's it's a romantic movie. It's a movie about a journey. It's a movie about relationships. But end of the day, it's a romantic movie. It's a sweet movie. It's a lovely feel good movie with a lot of make you smile moments, with excellent performances by both Diana Penty as Happy and Abhay Deol. But what really appealed to me, about this movie was the fact that you know it was progressing, just like a love story would. But in the end, when you're expecting a certain kind of resolution to the relationship between Diana Penty and Abhay Deol, you're sort of expecting them to fall in love, which naturally would be the case in most other movies. But they don't, and the way the movie ends is so heartwarmingly beautiful. It is so beautiful, so unexpected, and yet so beautiful. And I think that's what touched me the most about Happy Bhag Jayegi. All through it was a feel good, sweet, romantic movie, but the end was so beautiful, so beautiful. And I don't know, it's surprising because whoever I have spoken to who have seen Happy Bhag Jayegi have had great things to say about the movie. But for whatever reasons, when good cinema or good movies are discussed of current times, this one is not discussed enough. I wonder why. That shouldn't be the case. It is a beautiful movie, and it deserves to be called a beautiful movie, a great movie. Happy Bhag Jayegi. Please see it if you haven't. The last movie I want to talk about, unfortunately, hasn't been released on DVD. Although I'm told that a print exists on YouTube. I don't think it's the official. I don't think it's the original print, so it just might be a bad pirated copy. So whether you want to see it in the form of a bad pirated copy on YouTube or not, I leave to you. But it's a beautiful movie. I've seen it in the theater. I've seen it twice or thrice in the theater. It's a movie called Three Stories, directed by Arjun Mukherjee, and it's a wonderful film. It's really really unfortunate that the movie hasn't got the kind of exposure and the kind of viewings that it deserves. It's a beautiful movie. It's a play on the word stories because the movie is about a Mumbai chawl which has three stories or three floors, and each floor has one story about it, and all the characters in the chawl in each of these three stories are linked with one another. It's beautifully made, it's beautifully written and directed. And it's so sad that a movie like this hasn't got the right kind of exposure. Because one would imagine in today's day of multiplex, different kind of cinema actually has an audience, and people are willing to see content that is slightly different from the regular run-of-the-mill stuff. And this movie was like a breath of fresh air, Three Stories. But unfortunately, maybe it wasn't promoted well enough, or I don't know the reason, but Three Stories just disappeared, and it's so sad because it shouldn't have. It's a beautiful movie. As I've said, I've seen this movie twice or thrice, and each time I've seen it, I've discovered a new layer about the movie. To me, good art is something that every time you see it or revisit it, you find something new in it. You discover something new in it, something that you'd missed out on your previous viewings. Whether it's a good movie, a good book, a good music album, it sort of makes you discover it a little differently every time you see it or hear it or experience it. And that's been the case with Three Stories. Every time I've seen the movie, it's been a little different. Something that I had missed out earlier has come to me. So I feel really sad that a movie like Three Stories has been, in general, by and large, missed out by a majority of the people. But if you do manage to get a copy somewhere, or even if it's that print that exists on YouTube, take a look at it. You won't be disappointed. It's a story that has crime, it has romance, it has lost love, it has revenge. It has all the ingredients very nicely mixed with a superb performances by Renuka Shahane and other members of an ensemble cast. Unfairly ignored and definitely underrated. Well, so this concludes my list of 10 movies which I think are underrated. You may or may not agree with some of my choices, but I would love to hear your comments and your feedback, regarding my list. And if you think that there are some movies which I should have included in this list but I haven't, please do write so in the comments, and I'd look forward to reading them. Thank you for now. Bye bye.